Hi Yarny friends, I'm Sara Sach and welcome to my crochet channel and welcome to another edition of This or That. And what this or that is I ask you a question, I give you a couple of answers, and then you answer the question down in the comments. And remember, I love to read your comments. I learn from you and you can learn from me, and it makes it just a wonderful crochet community. So in last week's video, we talked about, do we clip our ends or do we carry them? And I loved the discussion on that. There were lots of reasons to clip and lots of reasons to carry. And I really appreciated all of your answers, and I tried really hard to read all of them. So this week, it's sort of a continuation on from that, because what happened is I got a lot of questions about, so if I don't want to clip it, and I want to carry it, how do I weave that in? Or if I want to clip it and not carry it, how do I weave that in? And so today's question is this: do I weave or do I not weave? You like that little not? I know there's a lot of people that say we should never ever tie a knot in crochet, and I sort of agree with that. I think weaving in is a much better way to do it, but you have to know how to weave it in securely because we don't want our work coming undone. Okay, and so I'm going to give you a real quick video using those same swatches from last week and show you some ways you can weave it in if you want to and weave it in securely. All right, so let's head over to the other camera. So here's those swatches we were working on last week, changing colors. Okay, now let's set this one aside and look at this one. This one we carried our yarn up the side. All right, so now how do we weave this in? We want it to be secure, right? We have ends where we brought it in, ends where we started. Or actually, this is the finished end. And I just pulled that last stitch out. There we go. So what you're going to do, say this is the end. We'll go ahead and tie that off. And we want to make the end of our stripes even. Now, usually when I do a carry up the side like this with my colors, it's because I'm going to put a trim on something. All right, and so what you would do, let's start with this one, and you do want to make sure you leave yourself a little bit of tail of yarn. Sometimes I don't, and I get mad at myself because I don't have enough yarn to weave it in securely. And that's why, if you think about it, you use less yarn when you carry than when you don't. Okay, that's another way to save on the yarn, just a little bit. All right, so I'm going to thread my needle, and I want to make sure that if I'm going to be weaving in with this color, we stay in the blue area. All right, so I'm going to go in a blue stitch, go under some of those, but that's not going to hold it enough, right? So what you want to do is you want to pull it just a little, go to the next stitch, and when you're coming back, make sure you go through some of the fibers of the stitches, and also make sure that you don't go through the front. All right, let's look at the front. You can't even tell there where I went through that, okay? And then if you have extra, you can clip it. And that's going to keep that caught in there real quick. I'll tell you what, once you weave it in, try to undo it and see how hard it is, and that will tell you if you've done that correctly. All right, let's do a beige one. All right, so we're going to do the same thing. We're not going to go up into the blue. We're going to try to stay in the beige, go up a few stitches, and you can go 2 or 3. Make sure you go through the back of those stitches. You want to go forward and come back the way you came and go through fibers of the stitches. Now, I'm only doing a few because this one was a little longer, and so I have a little bit more to work with. Another thing you can do is just go down through some of the stitches, going through fibers, making sure it goes through some of those fibers of the stitches. Okay? We'll look at the front. It's nice and secure. It looks really pretty. And when you're done, when you come back through to do your stitch, you'll stitch over those and cover those tails of yarn. And you'll have a really nice, neat project. And you do the same thing with these two as well. All right, let's look at this one. This one's a little bit different because they changed colors, or we've changed colors in the middle of our project, or we've brought it in the middle of our project because we were working sort of on a checkerboard type thing. Okay, so let me go ahead and show you something. When you're bringing it in on the side, something that you can do, leave a long tail, grab your yarn. We're doing double crochets here, so I'm going to do a chain 3. Sometimes you can do a chain 2 if you don't want this to be so long. And just remember that it's a chain 2 when you go to stitch in that first stitch. All right, so I'm going to turn my work. I like to do what's called a stay knot, so I'm going to just twist those together. Okay, and then I'm going to lay them up here. What you can do, this chain 3 counts as our first stitch, so we won't go in the first one, but we'll go around those and go into that second stitch and stitch over those for just a couple of stitches. I do 3 or 4 depending on the length of my yarn that I have. I give it a little bit of a pull and then I set it to the side. If this is the back, I pull those to the back. If I was doing this on the front, then I would pull them the other way so they would be on the back. Basically, we're just dropping those, okay? And then we'll just go ahead and stitch our next stitches. I'm going to just do a few so you can see. All right, so there's a few double crochets. All right, and we'll just pretend like we stitched that across. All right, so now what you can do is you've already got this underneath. So now just come in with your needle, grab that tail of yarn, move that out of the way, and then you can come up, go through some of those stitches that are the same color, and come back through it. And one thing that happens when you do it this way is when you're coming back this other way, you end up also stitching through where you already stitched over it, and it makes it a really nice secure hold. It is important though that you leave a long tail of yarn so that you can weave that in. And then you can clip that. And that's very secure. And you do the same thing with this beige one. I did not leave a long enough tail of yarn with that one, of course. But you would do the same thing, only because it's beige, you'll want to come down here into the beige or the color that you're using and weave that one in. And the key to a good weave in is to leave a good amount of yarn. You're going to need about 6-8 inches so that you can go back and forth so that it holds securely. The other thing is when you're using your needle that you go through stitches that are the same color, stick to the back side of the stitches so they don't show through, and also go through those fibers. Go through, and what I mean by that is when you're going back through, go through the stitches and through the fibers, and that gives you a nice good hold. Don't just go through the stitches as far as like under them, go in the fabric itself or the fiber of the yarn. Okay, and like here we'll do this blue one. It's on the back side here. We're going to go through those fibers. We'll go up to the next stitch, and when you're coming back, go through the fibers of that yarn you just put through there. And that's going to hold that nice and secure. And also, it's going to give you a nice look on both sides of your work. Weaving in seems complicated or hard, but once you realize that the key is leaving yourself a good amount of yarn when you clip your yarn or cut your yarn, and use that needle and go back and forth in the back, going through the fibers. Once you figure that technique out, it's going to work really well for you, especially when you're changing colors a lot. Weaving in ends, really, a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to weave in the ends. A lot of times when I have a project like this where I changed colors often, or maybe like this where I did a lot of changing colors often on here, I'll wait until I complete a good portion of it. And then one evening when I'm watching a movie or watching the news or something, I'll just sit down and it's a weaving in evening. You know, I take my needle and my scissors and I know this is what I'm going to do, and it's just what I'm going to do. It's part of the process of the project. I know a lot of people hate it. I don't really hate it. I just kind of view it as part of making sure that my project is going to be neat and tidy, especially if I'm going to give it away. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about knots. Because I said, do we weave or not to weave? You know, and like I said in the beginning of the video, a lot of people hate it when you make knots. But I use the Russian join, which, or some people call it the magic knot. And yes, I do have a video on the Russian join, and you can just go to the playlist there on my YouTube and put Russian join in there, and you'll find a couple where I have showed you how to do a Russian join. And I do use it at times. I use it a lot when I'm doing like a scrap happy project where I want to just get it in there, because you can join it up and keep going. And so that works really, really great for that project. There are times that I might do a knot, say putting on a pom-pom, a button, or sometimes if it's a difficult situation and I'm not sure, like I got a lot of ends to weave in, I might do a knot. And so I'm not going to tell you never do a knot, because remember, you have to do what works best for you. To get back to our question, our this or that question, do you weave or do you not? And remember, comment down in the comments underneath this video, and there are no wrong answers. We always do what works best for you. All right? All right. Well, I'll see you next time on another edition of This or That.